This episode of Show-Off Showdown is sponsored by Manscaped!
I'm just kidding. While this episode is not sponsored, however, the previous episode sponsor, JYS, had recently sent me another awesome review product of theirs, a charging station and display stand for the PlayStation VR 2, which I've done a review video on and I highly recommend checking it out. I'll put a link to it in the description below.
Welcome to Show-Off Showdown! In this series, the fighters are called Show-Offs, and this is the series for the Show-Off Showdown! Now let's meet the Show-Offs for tonight's showdown, shall we? Tonight is the Splatoon VS Bendy rematch you've all been waiting for! And as you can see, this battle will feature new characters as well as new rules! And as you would have guessed, this battle will feature a full-up pre-analysis for all 5 characters on both teams! So better grab some snacks, maybe some popcorn, donuts, schwaffles, sandwich, crab traps, pescatarians, or bacon soup, cause it's gonna be a long run! Now without further ado, it's time for the Show-Off Showdown pre-analysis!
Fair warning, this pre-analysis contains a lot of major spoilers from both Splatoon 3 and Bendy and the Dark Revival. Just a heads up for those of you who don't want to be spoiled. But if you've already played the games or don't mind any spoilers, then feel free to continue watching. Over 12,000 years into the future, the world is consumed by a global flood, wiping out nearly all life on Earth to extinction. The remaining few humans who survived the events would attempt to rebuild human society, but would ultimately fail and perish as well. But not before inventing a special liquid crystal that absorbed the collective desires and feelings of humanity, and these crystals had shattered into microscopic fragments which were absorbed by the nearby sea creatures, especially cephalopods, which caused their bodies to change. They began to emerge on the surface and rapidly evolve into a far more advanced and intelligent human-like forms. These hyper-evolved humanoid cephalopods would come to be known as the Inklings and Octarians. It wasn't long before they became the apex species of the planet, expanding to every corner of the world, forming their own civilization in regions such as the Splatlands and Inkopolis. Now, if you've already seen the first battle between the Inklings and Bendy game, then you should already know how their history goes. In this episode, I will mainly focus on the new stuff from Splatoon 3, rather than just repeating everything I said in the last round's analysis. Anyway, the combatants for this battle we'll be focusing on are New Agent 3, Small Fry, and Deep Cut. Let's start off with New Agent 3, a fresh new squid in the Splatlands who just moved into Splatsville, aka the City of Chaos, but was then suddenly recruited as the new Agent 3 after the original Agent 3 was promoted to the new captain of the Squidbeak Splatoon after Captain Cuttlefish retired. Speaking of which, former Captain Cuttlefish was kidnapped and the new Captain 3 and the Squid Sisters tasked New Agent 3 with finding him while they slowly uncover the mysteries within the strange place they'd end up in, known as Alterna. Alongside her little pet salmonid buddy, Small Fry, New Agent 3 sets out on an adventure to save Cuttlefish while exploring strange areas covered in weird fuzzy ooze that turns anything it touches, well, fuzzy, including Octarians with furry tentacles, which just sounds like a whole new recipe for even more weird furry and tentacle fetish material. As if that stuff ain't weird enough already. Anyway, long story short, eventually they find Cuttlefish all dried up and inches away from death, as well as the corporate mastermind behind all this chaos, a giant mutant, hyper-intelligent grizzly bear named Mr. Grizz, who's apparently the CEO of Grizzco, the salmon run company, and his lifelong goal was to cover the entire world in his fuzzy ooze in order to turn all of the evolved sea creatures into mammals in an effort to restore balance to the world that he once knew. Obviously, the agents weren't gonna let that happen. So that's when an epic final boss in space took place, when Agent 3 and her little buddy Small Fry took on Mr. Grizz and his onslaught of fuzzy ooze, waves, and minions, with a bit of help from DJ Octavio, Deep Cut, and the agents back on Earth. After vacuuming up all of his fuzzy ooze on his body and ink blasting him to hell, the agents were able to defeat Mr. Grizz and save the world just like they did in the Octo expansion. Alright, now that I've spoiled and summed up the story, it's time to discuss what Agent 3 is capable of. In the Inklings vs. Bendy Gang episode, I've discussed many impressive facts about the Inklings, such as the fact that they don't have bones and their bodies are made of solidified liquid ink and they can flexibly squeeze through even the tightest spaces. They can shapeshift into a squid form to swim swim through ink and camouflage in it, a minor healing factor, and their eyes can detect prey up to 100 meters away. And of course, being evolved cephalopods, they are highly intelligent to the point where human intelligence is considered primitive compared to theirs. Now in terms of fighting skill, Inklings are like natural-born warriors bred for combat, and have perfected their combative skills for over 2,000 years worth of generations. They appear to have a decent level of hand-to-hand combat, and are giftedly skilled with a variety of weapons, which I'll talk about later. Now, new Agent 3 is exceptionally skilled, as she was able to take on and defeat DJ Octavio when she was just a fresh new recruit. Though DJ Octavio wasn't at his strongest, but it's still pretty impressive for a newbie if you ask me. Now, Inklings might not have shown that much in the physical strength department, aside from casually lifting and swinging around a washing machine as if it weighs nothing, but they definitely make up for their lack of strength with firepower and attack potency of their weapons. Inklings have a very wide variety of different ink-based weapons to choose from standard firearms to heavy-duty rapid-fire Gatling guns, short-range explosive blasters, long-range sniper rifle-like chargers, giant paint rollers that flatten Inklings like a steamroller, bow and arrow type weapons with explosive ink cartridges, and even ink katanas that slash and splat enemies. They also have a wide variety of sub-weapons from all kinds of different ink grenades, mines, homing torpedoes, and defense mechanisms, but their most powerful weapons are their specials. Once they're charged up, all hell breaks loose. Their specials rain a wide variety of havoc, from massive ink explosions to onslaughts of targeting missiles, clouds that rain ink, big mechanical crab turrets, blasting Kamehameha like waves of energy, a vacuum that sucks up enemy ink and blasts it back at them twice as hard, not to mention a tactical mini fridge that gives free sodas to enhance teammates, and even transforming into a giant invincible Kraken squid that rampages through everything in its path. Now you might be wondering just how powerful these weapons are. Well, like I mentioned in the previous round, it's been consistently shown that common ink guns can fire with enough force and pressure to break through solid metals as strong as titanium, which is comparable to high-pressure water jet cutters that slice through metal, which requires 55,000 psi. And that's just the common ink shooters. The various stronger weapon classes I mentioned earlier could potentially dish out even more damage than that. So basically, if you got shot by an Inkling, you die almost instantly. Now in terms of speed, I previously described how Inklings can dodge sniper shots and multiple missiles, which on an average travel between 2,000 and 7,500 miles per hour. Now if you think that's impressive, the Super Squid Jump got one hell of a buff in the third game. By far, Agent 3's most impressive travel speed feat was when she chased after Grizz's space shuttle by Super Squid jumping all the way up past the Earth's atmosphere into outer space. Now to give you an idea of just how insanely fast that is, a space shuttle speed is a minimum average of 17,500 miles per hour, and it took a NASA space shuttle about 8.5 minutes to reach Earth's orbit. On the other hand, it only took Agent 3 about 9 seconds to launch herself all the way up to that point, which means Agent 3 had to have been moving about 56 times faster than a space shuttle, making her Super Squid Jump travel speed roughly 980,000 miles per hour, or over 1,277 times the speed of sound. Honestly, the fact that her body could withstand the terminal velocity and pressure of traveling that fast is impressive in itself. Speaking of which, if you thought the Inkling's speed was impressive, let's take a look at their durability. In the last round, I described how their bodies are tough enough to tank at least several high-pressured ink shots before they go splat, which are once again at least 55,000 psi per shot, as well as Agent 3's special armor layer that allows her to survive getting stomped on by the Octo Stomp and crushed by a massive bowling ball, as well as city block level ink explosions. Not to mention, at the end of the final boss, Agent 3 survived a massive explosion that blew up an entire space shuttle and maybe a few asteroids surrounding it. It's hard to say just how big or powerful this explosion is, but I'd say it would have to be at least enough to level a city block, if not several, or possibly even an entire city, though I could be wrong. Now, even though Agent 3 and DJ Octavio were shown flying away from the explosion, there's no way in hell they didn't get caught in it. Even if they weren't in direct center or point blank range of it, they had to have been at least caught in the surrounding explosion's expanding radius after the initial boom. Naturally, sure if I'm wording it right, but you get the point. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention something very important earlier. Turns out Agent 3's greatest weapon is actually her little salmonid buddy, Small Fry. Not only can Small Fry help Agent 3 solve puzzles and find hidden objects, as well as quickly attack and devour nearby enemies in seconds like a pack of piranhas, but more importantly is Small Fry's monstrous appetite. He can easily consume very large amounts of dense liquid substances that are dangerous to Inklings, such as fuzzy ooze, which doesn't seem to affect Small Fry at all. Little guy's got a stomach of steel. Not only that, but when Small Fry hears the Squid Sisters' heavenly melody, his body builds up with marine life energy flowing through him until he transforms into a massive kaiju-like form called Huge Fry. During the final boss, Huge Fry was strong enough to match and fight on par with Mr. Grizz, who is strong enough to physically rotate an entire 2,000-ton space shuttle with his body. Not to mention the fact that Mr. Grizz was bathing in enough fuzzy ooze to cover the entire planet's surface and alter all life on Earth. I'd say that's worth taking into account as well. Oh, and speaking of massive kaiju salmons, I forgot to mention earlier that Inklings also have experience fighting and defeating similar massive kaiju like King Salmonids during big runs, such as Kohuzuna and Horoboros. Just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, I think I talked enough about Agent 3 and Small Fry. Now it's time we discuss Deep Cut, the popular music superstar trio of Splatsville and hosts of the local news program Anarchy Splatcast. But beyond their famed public image, they're also secretly bandits, treasure hunters, who scavenge the Splatlands looking for anything valuable they can get their hands on, so they can share their found treasures with the poor residents of Splatsville. And kudos to them, since that Mad Max town looks like it's just riddled with poverty. Anyway, if anything gets in the way of their quest for treasure, you can bet they ain't going down without a fight. The first member of Deep Cut we'll be discussing is the cold-blooded queen, Shiver, a stubborn, competitive, aloof perfectionist who doesn't take losing for an answer. Shiver is a professional shark tamer, and as a child she formed a ritual bond with a giant shark named Master Mega. Not only is Shiver's shark equipped with rocket jets, but it must be some kind of mutant freak of nature, as this shark can swim through ink and even somehow through solid floors just by leaving ink trails. It can also shoot waves of ink from its tail, create swirling ink tornadoes that it can hop between, Sharknado reference anyone, and even shoot big deadly ink lasers out of its mouth. And not to mention belly flop hard enough to create a massive shockwave that clears a whole floor of ink. On another note, Shiver appears to be tougher than an ordinary Inkling or Octoling, as her body can take a few more ink shots than most Inklings before going splat. Luckily, she has a nearby personal spawn point on her shark that she can regenerate and respawn from should that happen. Not to mention, Shiver took a powerful smoke bomb that launched her and her massive shark high into the air. When I reached out to Reddit to calculate this feat, these were the best answers I got. Anyway, next up is the Eel Deal Fry, an Indian vampire squid Inkling with a splat ton of style. She's known for being peppy and reckless, often wearing her emotions on her sleeves, as well as her fearlessness and audacity, often rushing headfirst into dangerous situations without fear or hesitation, yet also very kind and fun-loving at heart. Fry is a professional eel charmer, having the ability to command an entire army of giant flying eels at her disposal with a simple toot of a punji flute. These eels have a variety of attack patterns, such as homing in like missiles, spitting ink projectiles, swarming around in circles creating a tornado-like effect, and often in massive numbers. These eels can also form together into a bridge like a colony of ants, as well as create large ink whirlpool streams that Master Mega can ride on. Not to mention, Fry rides on top of a giant spinning octo stomp that packs quite a wallop when it comes charging at you. Just like Shiver, Fry has her own personal respawn point, and she can take a few more ink shots than an average Inkling, plus the smoke bomb launching thing I mentioned earlier. However, there is at least one exploitable weakness Fry has. If her specific eels wearing masks gets hit hard enough, they can be sent flying back at Fry and throw her off balance, leaving her exposed just long enough for an opportunity to get splatted. Now finally, the hype Manta Storm, the main man himself, Big Man, the most laid-back member of Deep Cut. Big Man is a chill, peace-loving manta ray who is all about fun and good times. He also often acts as the voice of reason, mediating the other two and bringing them back down to earth. While Big Man usually doesn't like to resort to violence, he's not above making his own threats nor putting up a fight when he needs to. Big Man's physicality is likely on par with the others, although he does have rather unique abilities that are quite different from Inklings and Octolings. Big Man can essentially phase through the ground, leaving trails of ink with only a ghostly silhouette of himself visible, which splits into multiple decoys upon getting hit to confuse his enemies and make it difficult to tell which one is the real Big Man. In short, he's basically just like the Phantom Manta from Super Mario Sunshine, if that wasn't obvious enough. Not to mention, Big Man also throws ink bombs and homing torpedoes at his enemies, as well as a powerful charge attack. One thing that's definitely worth noting is that Big Man appears to be the toughest member of his team, as his body can tank a lot more high-pressured ink shots and explosives than an Inkling could, so it's gonna take quite a bit of firepower to take him down. Okay, now as impressive as these Inklings are, they're definitely not without their flaws or weaknesses. One of the most common being that they have a semi-limited supply of ink in the tank, and if they run out of ink, they'll have to wait for the ink tank to slowly refill itself. However, arguably their biggest weakness is the fact that because their bodies are made of solidified liquid, they are fatally vulnerable to water, and if an Inkling's body is completely submerged in water, they'll melt like witches. And it's likely that their bodies can be damaged or negatively affected by other similar liquid substances should they be submerged in it. We all know what happens when they touch the fuzzy ooze, right? But despite all this, Agent 3, Small Fry, and Deep Cut will never back down from a fight, especially for their world that's worth fighting for. But will that fighting spirit be enough to handle their opponents in tonight's battle? Well, let's find out. About 30 years after Joey Drew Studios was shut down, an old friend of Joey named Nathan Arch bought and resurrected the classic Bendy cartoon franchise through his new animation company known as Archgate Pictures. However, little did Mr. Arch know that when he bought the rights to the Bendy IP, he got a lot more than he bargained for, as deep below the studio resided the remains of the old Joey Drew Studios, which has been transformed into an entire realm created by the ink machine made up of ink, dreams, and memories. This underground inky world of Joey Drew Studios exists in parallel to the outside world, but completely removed from the march of time, an endless cycle stuck on repeat. All of the lost souls of the former studio workers are forever trapped in purgatory, but there is one thing they all have to fear above everything else: the nightmarish entity that rules the ink realm, known as the Ink Demon. Okay, now that I've summed that up, I'd like to address something before I analyze each character for this battle. Unlike the previous Inklings vs Bendy Gang episode, I will not be using a weird, confusing, flawed composite method for these characters like I did before. To keep things simple and concise, I will only be using the specific Ink World incarnations of Bendy, Boris, and Alice from Dark Revival, those being Allison Angel, Tom Boris, and Bendy, aka the Ink Demon. And only feats from the Dark Revival game will be the focus here. I just wanted to make that clear. Okay, now let's start off with the little devil himself, Bendy. This version of Bendy was originally a failed attempt at a life-size model of Bendy, which became a living nightmare, a mindless, soulless, savage beast that kills anything that moves. However, in the events of the Dark Revival, this Ink Demon has since evolved and became far more and dangerously intelligent and cunning than before, even capable of mentally manipulating his victims. But when the Ink Demon was eventually caught by Wilson, who attempted to kill the Ink Demon and usurp his throne, he was unable to do so and instead trapped the Ink Demon into a smaller, harmless form resembling classic Bendy, the perfected form that he was originally meant to be. Although he didn't stay trapped in this form forever, as the beast was eventually set free once again. Now, what exactly is this Ink Demon capable of, you may ask? Well, the Ink Demon has the ability to telekinetically control and manipulate ink, and just his presence alone can flood a whole room. He's basically an ink bender. He can also camouflage by submerging in ink, phase through walls, summon hordes of ink minions, has a machine that can turn globs of ink into solid objects such as tools or weapons, and apparently the dark ink puddles he emerged from can speak to him, claim the ink tells him people's secrets. The Ink Demon also appears to be able to telepathically communicate with his perceived prey, as they could hear his voice in their head, and once again the Ink Demon is very intelligent, cunning, and manipulative, often targeting his prey's emotional and mentally vulnerable points, slowly manipulating and gaslighting his prey until they eventually succumb to their death at the Ink Demon's hands. One of the most famous quotes from the game regarding the Ink Demon is, "His power is infinite, his evil is complete." Although this is most likely hyperbole, as the Ink Demon has never directly shown capable of anything impressive enough to back up that vague claim, and if we take those words literally, then we could just claim that Bendy could easily beat someone like Goku or Saitama, for example, which doesn't make any sense at all. So even though Bendy is confirmed to be the most powerful entity within his own world, that doesn't mean he's a broken, unstoppable god or anything like that. So it's best that we just stick with what we know the Ink Demon has directly shown or proven capable of, rather than taking vague exaggerations at face value. Alright, now let's see what the Ink Demon has in fact physically shown capable of. Now in terms of just how strong the Ink Demon is, he can easily tear people limb from limb, as well as grab and drag vehicles under ink rivers. Also, his beast form can smash through walls and pipes by charging like a raging bull. The Ink Demon was able to quickly kill Shippohoi Wilson with little effort, a hybrid ink being that was said to be powerful enough to kill the Ink Demon and usurp his throne. I guess Wilson must have underestimated him, but I'll talk about him later. The Ink Demon is also very fast. Not only can he likely dodge bullets from a machine gun, but he can also sprint fairly fast in his beast form, and when submerged in ink, he travels very fast around the studio. So fast, it's almost as if he's teleporting through the ink, though that's debatable. The Ink Demon is also quite tough to put down, as bullets have no effect on him. Being made of liquid ink, solid objects just pass through his body, and when Wilson tore his body in half, the Ink Demon was able to regenerate his lost limbs simply by forming new ones out of ink. Because of this factor, the Ink Demon was implied to be virtually unkillable. Now, if you thought the Ink Demon was tough in his base form, nothing compares to the final ultimate beast form. After the Ink Demon absorbed Audrey's soul, the daughter of Drew and the power of the demon became one, and the Ink Demon achieved his ultimate, most powerful form. In this form, the Ink Demon can casually take out entire armies of lost ones like they're nothing. It can easily tear through multiple steel gates like paper, which has been estimated to require over 20 kilograms of TNT, putting Beast Bendy's max striking power at around small building level. Now, as impressive as the Ink Demon is, he's definitely not without his flaws or weaknesses. Not only are nearby entities alerted of his presence, but apparently it doesn't take much effort to hide from the Ink Demon, as Audrey was able to hide and evade him numerous times by hiding in simple places like the vents, barrels, or storage lockers. Also, the Ink Demon is likely weak to electricity, just like Audrey and other ink beings who've been killed by electric shocks. And because Bendy's body is made of synthetic liquid ink, it's very likely that his body can be thinned out, melted, or washed away when mixed with other liquid substances such as water. If the Ink Demon is struck with a large amount of concentrated energy, such as the Gen Corp signal towers, his powers will be nullified and he'll be reduced to a smaller Bendy form, which is easily his weakest state. Not only is Bendy timid and harmless in nature, but he shows emotional responses to pain, though apparently getting whacked in the head doesn't seem to bother him. Now, last but not least, you might remember that film reel from the first game titled The End, right? Well, it has finally been explained. Turns out that if the Ink Demon looks at the special film reel titled The End, his entire Ink World cycle will reset and everything starts all over again, including himself. Alright, now that we're done with the demon, let's move on to the angel. Allison Angel takes the physical form of the character Alice Angel. She explains that the ink machine creates many models of the same character forms on the outside, but on the inside they're all pretty different. She may look like Alice, but she's no angel. Allison inherits the personality of Allison Pendle, a woman who helped Joey Drew see the good in himself that he couldn't see. Allison Angel is very kind and caring, always looking out to help others who need it. While she is reluctant to perform dangerous tasks that may lead to certain death, Allison is very brave and won't hesitate to put up a fight when she needs to. In fact, Allison is a very skilled fighter, able to take on dozens of lost souls at once, while armed with a razor-sharp blade that she used to kill her evil counterpart, Alice Angel, twice, as well as a Thompson submachine gun that has unlimited ammunition. Out of all of Allison's trusted allies, her closest friend is Tom. Created in the form of the classic character character Boris the Wolf, Tom is Allison's best friend and protector. It's heavily implied that Tom was once a disgruntled repairman and World War II veteran named Thomas Connor before having his soul put through the ink machine and being reborn in Boris the Wolf's image. Tom is a silent, gruff, and cautious character who willingly follows Allison, though he does have trust issues around strangers and often puts on an intimidating approach. Although he didn't seem to be quite as stubborn towards Audrey, even allowing her to pet him. Anyway, just like Allison, Tom is a very skilled fighter, able to take on multiple enemies at once. Not only is he armed with a sturdy axe, but Tom also has a mechanical arm which is strong enough to break through a steel door with a single punch. Considering it takes an average of 40,000 PSI to break steel, that's pretty impressive. Not to mention, his strength is likely also comparable to Brute Boris, who can lift and throw roller coaster cars. As an added bonus, Tom was shown riding on the back of a large lurker named Big Steve, who is also pretty strong in his own right. Alright, now that we covered most of the heroes, it's time we talk about one of the villains who will be joining Team Bendy exclusively for this battle, also known as Ship Ahoy Wilson. As I briefly mentioned earlier, Ship Ahoy Wilson is the horrific amalgamation of Wilson Arch, his original cartoon character Ship Ahoy Dudley, and his sidekick Crackle the Crab. Wilson is the son of Nathan Arch, the founder of Archgate. After many miserable years of living in his father's shadow, Wilson discovered the ink machine and the hidden underground world it had created, and he decided to usurp Bendy's throne and rule over the ink world of Joey Drew Studios, freezing the cycle in place and creating his own ink entities called Keepers in order to bring order to said world. Wilson created a new character named Ship Ahoy Dudley to rival Bendy, and he intended to bring his creation to life and have it dethrone the ink demon and become the new god of the ink world. In order for his amalgamation to be powerful enough to kill the ink demon, he needed the right soul to inhabit and control it. He originally intended to use Audrey's soul for the vessel, but instead Audrey pushed Wilson into the grinder, and so Wilson's body was destroyed and his soul was implanted in his creation, and thus he became his own hybrid creation known as Ship Ahoy Wilson. This monstrous amalgamation was said to be strong and powerful enough to defeat the ink demon himself, though whether or not if Wilson had overestimated its abilities or not is unclear. We do know that he's strong enough to easily destroy metal machines simply by swinging his giant anchor around. It is likely that he was at least just as strong as Bendy before Audrey had given him a good beating and sucked out Wilson's soul out of its body, which had severely weakened him to the point where the ink demon had killed Ship Ahoy Wilson with little effort. Although even after being severely weakened and having Wilson's soul sucked out of him, Ship Ahoy was still strong enough to break Audrey's legs and leave her bleeding out ink to death, so I guess that's worth noting. Now speaking of which, Audrey is the daughter of Joey Drew and the main protagonist of Bendy and the Dark Revival. Audrey was once an animator working for Archgate Pictures. She seemed to enjoy her work creating the newly revived Bendy cartoons and striving hard to reach her goals. That is until Wilson tricked Audrey into turning on the ink machine and they both drowned in a pool of ink. After that, Audrey woke up inside the underground ink world of Joey Drew Studios and found that her body was transformed into a supernatural-like inky form of herself. To say Audrey was scared and confused would be an understatement, but she was determined to navigate the studio and whatever horrors dwelt within in hopes of finding a way home. However, if she didn't already have enough to deal with, her world was about to be shook even harder after she meets the spirit of Joey Drew himself, who revealed to Audrey her shocking origins. Against all logic and expectations, Audrey learned that she was the daughter of Joey Drew, but rather than making her the old-fashioned fun way, Joey actually created Audrey with the ink machine. However, instead of her coming out a cartoony model made of pure ink like all the others born from the ink machine, Joey was somehow able to get the ink machine to create a living being that was almost human. Despite Audrey being born from the ink machine, her body structure and functions are far more similar to a biological human than pure ink beings, born of ink but living in flesh. It took a while for her to get used to this and accept the truth, to say the least. Anyway, because of how unique and special Audrey is, when she was brought into the ink world with a new pure ink form, she gained some extraordinary powers and abilities over time, which I'll go over now. It's been said that the powers of the ink are Audrey's to command. Not only can she likely control ink just like Bendy, but her body becomes even stronger by absorbing extra thick ink, and she can suck up or dissolve thick globs of ink by touching it. One of Audrey's most powerful abilities is Banish. With her left hand, she essentially sucks out the ink or life force of ink beings she approaches undetected, as well as banish them back to the dark puddles they emerged from. Though she does need to sneak up on enemies to effectively do this, but luckily Audrey is pretty much a master of stealth, enough to give Solid Snake a run for his money. Another one of Audrey's useful abilities is Flow. Gifted to her by a friendly lost soul named Porter, Audrey could swiftly dash in short bursts so fast it's almost as if she's teleporting. Her Flow also allows her to dodge bullets and phase through people like a ghost. Audrey also has the ability to fast travel by inserting herself into linger pipes and use them to quickly travel around the studio. Speaking of which, every time Audrey is killed through ink-related means inside the ink world, her soul stays intact and her body reanimates and re-emerges from a nearby lurker pipe, although this appears to be only a factor exclusively inside the ink world. Not to mention, while it's unknown if Audrey's body can heal or regenerate like Bendy, we do know that she can patch up her wounds and injuries simply by eating various foods she finds around the studio. Now, to go along with her various abilities, Audrey also carries a versatile weapon called a jet pipe, which has many useful functions and upgrades. Not only can Audrey use it to power various machines and pummel enemies into goo with it, but she can use special batteries to charge up her jet pipe for a heavy impact attack, and a fully charged jet pipe can shock and stun enemies as strong as keepers on impact. Not to mention, Audrey can also break metal vent covers with it, which has been estimated to require about a half kilogram of TNT. Maybe not as impressive as Bendy's feat, but still worth noting. With this powerful pipe wrench, Audrey has defeated some rather tough enemies, such as the Butcher Gang, Carly the annoying ghost girl, a giant spider-like creature named King Widow, and a cult leader named Lord Amok, whom she inherited his title from after defeating him, and Audrey became the new Lord Amok. I figured that was worth mentioning since the game never really touched upon it again. Anyway, Audrey was even able to go toe-to-toe with Shipahoy Wilson, who once again was said to be just as strong as the Ink Demon. Speaking of which, when the Ink Demon absorbed Audrey's soul and they became one, Audrey was able to take control of the Ink Demon's body and use it to her advantage, probably because she has a soul and the Ink Demon doesn't. So this ultimate beast form is actually a shared form between Audrey and the Ink Demon, and they're required to willingly combine their bodies and powers in order to achieve this form. Kinda like a Dragon Ball fusion, except the Ink Demon had no control over his own body when Audrey was behind the wheel. After hijacking the Ink Demon's beast form and rampaging across the studio, Audrey quite literally puts an end to the Ink Demon and resets the cycle. After everything restarts and Audrey is finally back in her office, she brings little old Bendy with her, because ever since her father Joey Drew officially died for good, his cartoon world became hers. So Audrey is now the ruler of the ink world of Joey Drew Studios, to watch over and protect it, as well as make the endless cycle more bearable for all of her friends who live inside it. Alright, now despite Audrey's impressive willpower, skills, and abilities, she's definitely not without her flaws and weaknesses. For starters, unlike the Ink Demon, Audrey cannot stay submerged in deep pools of ink for too long or else she'll die. She's also been shown to be vulnerable to electricity, as she could be killed by a powerful enough electric surge such as an electric chair, and she could supposedly be harmed by toxic fumes as well. If she comes in contact with the Gent Corp signal towers, or perhaps a similar large energy output, her powers will be temporarily nullified. Despite Audrey being tough enough to tank a few bullets and beatings, she's kinda like a glass cannon. Her body may be made of ink, but it does contain organs just like Alice and Boris, and puncturing these vital organs like her heart could lead to death very quickly. And if Audrey's body or soul is consumed by the Ink Demon, or through similar means, she cannot regenerate or come back from that, not even in the ink world. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the Bendy gang. Will these cartoon inky friends and foes be able to put aside their differences and work together as a team to take down their opponents from the Squidbeak Splatoon? Or will they die trying and be sent back to the dark ink puddles? Looks like we're about to find out.
This is it, folks. Who will be the winner of this ultimate crazy epic showdown? It's time to find out. Now, without further ado, it's time for the Show-Off Showdown!
Get ready for the next battle.
And there you go. What do you think? Glad to see you love it. Audrey, come quick. Wilson is planning something.
What is he planning?
I will tell you on the way. Just come along. You too, Bendy. Okay, Allison. Can you please tell us what's going on here now? Wilson is planning a full-on attack on some place called Splatsville. He said the Inklings don't deserve the luxury they have on the surface, while we suffer down here. He plans on taking over Splatsville and making it ours.
Oh God, we have to stop him. This isn't right. Those Inklings aren't hurting us.
I wish we could, Audrey. But everyone is with Wilson on this one. Betty, Sammy, Harry, heck, even Tom is in on him with this one.
All of them? Really, Allison?
Yes. Sadly, Audrey, we don't have much of a choice here. We had to fight the Inklings. There's no real alternative.
No, I refuse to believe we have to fight them. There has to be a different way.
If you're so sure, Audrey, try telling it to Wilson.
Thanks, Goofball. There has to be another way.
Audrey, glad to see you've come to join us.
Why are you doing this?
Excuse me.
The Inklings! Why are you trying to hurt them? They have done absolutely nothing to us.
Audrey, I'm afraid you're misunderstanding this predicament. These Inklings aren't innocent citizens. They are horrifying and evil creatures that can merge with ink and get enjoyment out of hurting each other with weapons of destruction.
Likely story. Even if that's true, they still aren't hurting anyone. Everyone might be with you, but me and Allison aren't.
Open your eyes, Audrey. For 12,000 years we've been trapped in this dark, inky prison since the global flood. But now is our time for retribution. This is for all of us, Audrey. Don't you want a better life for all of us?
Not like this. We will not hurt others.
It's not like you have a choice anyway. I've already sent out my dwellers to attack the Inklings. We will have to fight them soon enough.
I don't like this one bit.
It's best you three get ready soon. We will win this war.
You heard him, Audrey. Let's get ready. It's best if you stay here, Bendy. Keep watch here so the Inklings can't sneak attack us. Tom will also stay back too, along with Steve.
All right, let's do this.
Listen up, it's going down. Repping the Splatlands, we are Deep Cut.
And Arky Splatland. We're live.
Hey, here we go!
You lip sync, we drip ink.
Hey!
Watch out, everyone. We have discovered a new ink species like us, but they appear to be more monstrous.
And they appear to be far more scary and dangerous than the Salmondoids.
Because of this, we are putting Splatsville under lockdown.
This ain't no drill, y'all. Get your splasher shots and rollers ready.
Hey!
Make sure to keep your guard up, and don't be afraid.
They might have scary faces, but one good hit and they're down for the count.
And that's it. For now.
Hey!
From Splatsville, that's a wrap. Catch you later.
Hey!
We warned everyone about the ink monsters, so we should be good to go.
Alright then, you ready, Agent 3? Looks like Small Fry wants to go on his own. Make sure to be careful, Small Fry. You don't know what they're capable of. And remember, Agent 3, to be extra careful when going to their base. They'll likely try and ambush you.
Hey!
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. You also be careful too.
Hey!
Come on already, let's get them, so we can start the next Splatfest soon.
Let's get popping. You know, I almost feel bad for them. Almost.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Wait, you're one of them? Why didn't you attack me when I was open?
Not all of us are the same. Some of us are friendly, you know.
I find that highly unlikely.
I can't blame you, but I assume we aren't here to talk.
Should we get this started?
Took the words right out of my mouth. Let's tango.
I respect your stealth and skills, but this is where it ends.
Now the true show begins.
Sorry, Inkling, but I have no choice.
But the show hasn't had its grand finale yet. Join me, Master Mega.
You and Inkling.
You did splendid, Master Mega. You can rest now. I'll finish this.
You and that shark are something else.
You got anything else left to say before I end this?
I never wanted this, but I had to. Our self-proclaimed leader forced us to do this. I never wanted to hurt you or your people. I'm so sorry.
Why didn't you tell me before?
Would you have believed me?
This doesn't have to end like this. We can save you.
I'm afraid it's too late for that.
Well, is there anything you want me to do?
Please, just stay here with me. We can enjoy this peace and quiet.
All right then.
Hey? Hey! 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 Hey!
It's okay, Audrey. Just pretend you're the hero. Hey, you two. Keep your guard up. I won't go easy. Well, that could have been better.
Hey you, I see you down there. You have a lot of nerve to attack our hope.
Listen, I don't want any trouble. We can talk this out. I don't want to hurt you.
You must take me for a fool. Prepare to get splatted. Eagles, come help me out.
Please, I seriously don't want to hurt.
You already have. Eels, give her your all. Whoa, you took it like a champ. Sounds like ya.
Yeah, you certainly know what you're doing. No!
Why did you do that? Wasn't he on your side?
I could never let someone innocent suffer.
You weren't lying. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It wasn't your fault.
Do you think you'll make it?
I don't know. Just stay with me. I just need someone to talk to right now.
Alright.
You must be one of those pets the Inklings have. You really think you have a chance to end me? I almost feel sorry for you. Rise, my dwellers.
Found you. Look out, Inkling. I have a question for you. Do you think it's fair that we suffer down here while your people live the life of luxury and love? Is it fair that we live in constant pain and terror? Tell me now, I see you. It's clear how much you hate us. You want us to suffer. Your death will be quick and painful. Goodbye, Inkling girl.
Hey! Hey. Hey.
Hey!
It's nice to know that everything is back to how it was before, but I still can't help but feel sorry for Audrey and her friends.
Yeah, I feel bad for all of them. Well, besides Stinky Wilson.
Hey.
Hey everyone! We have something that might cheer you all up.
Wow, really was it?
You'll see right now. Okay, you four can come in now.
Hi everyone. How are you all doing?
So, Bendy suffers 3 losses in a row, huh? Man, the little devil can't catch a break.
Okay, now before I explain why the Inklings win yet again, I will say that if the specific incarnations of Bendy and his friends we use in this battle were the cartoon comic book Bendy, Boris, and Alice from the Crack Up comics, then the Bendy gang would have likely had a much greater chance against the Inklings and maybe possibly even pulled the win, given the fact that they have Toon Force on their side and whatnot. As an example, in just a single comic, they all survived a fall from the moon to the earth like a meteorite without a single scratch, and Boris literally ate the moon, which is a way bigger appetite than Small Fry for sure. Honestly, I think this might be one of the main reasons why I decided not to do a weird, confusing, flawed composite method like I did in the previous round, as cramming in the cartoon comic feats would have likely given the Bendy gang a rather unfair advantage. Plus, it wouldn't make any sense anyway, since these versions of Bendy and his friends are a completely different incarnation from a spin-off comic series, without any connection to the characters from the main games. Besides, I thought sticking with these specific Ink World incarnations from the main game series would make more sense anyway, since this entire matchup is all Ink themed and whatnot. Okay, now that I've addressed all that, let's discuss how and why Team Splatoon wins yet another epic ink-filled showdown. When it comes to skill and experience, as I mentioned in past episodes, Inklings are literally bred for combat with thousands of years worth of fighting experience which they perfected over many centuries and generations, so I think it stands to reason why the Inklings are generally much more skilled fighters. Now in terms of speed, earlier I've explained just how absurdly fast Agent 3's Super Squid Jump is, but even if we say that's just travel speed, which isn't as important as combat speed, the Inklings still have faster reaction time as they can dodge sniper shots shots and multiple missiles, which is definitely more impressive than the Bendy Gang's bullet dodging feats for sure. Maybe Audrey's flow dash might be a bit faster than that, but probably not by much. Plus, it's only a short burst, and it has a cooldown time, so she has to wait a bit every time she uses it. As for durability, I'd say the Inklings definitely have the edge here. If you watched the pre-analysis earlier, you already know why. Now, some of you might be wondering, couldn't Audrey just use her banish ability to suck the life force out of the Inklings and instantly kill them? Well, whether if Audrey's banish ability only works on ink entities in the world of Joy Drew Studios or not is unclear, but even if Audrey's banish ability could suck out the Inklings' souls, she probably wouldn't be able to sneak up on them because not only are Inklings also pretty much masters of stealth just like Audrey, if not even better, but the Inklings are so freaking fast Audrey wouldn't be physically able to catch them, even with her flow dash. We've seen Audrey fail to banish Alice Angel, who quickly grabbed her hand just before she could touch her, so if Alice could stop her, then the Inklings should be more than capable of doing the same. Not to mention the fact that Inklings can detect prey up to 100 meters away, which would make it even more difficult for Audrey to catch him by surprise. Okay, now even though I've repeatedly debunked this claim multiple times in past episodes, I've still seen people saying Bendy could just absorb the Inklings' ink. I really hope this is the last time I have to explain why that's not true, because I'm really getting tired of having to explain this yet again years later. Now, as I've stated multiple times, cephalopod ink and synthetic ink are not the same ink. They are two completely different liquid substances. I've even done a real-life experiment where I poured synthetic ink and cuttlefish ink into a test tube to see what happens when they mix together. The resulting chemical reaction was kind of similar to Mentos and soda, but way slower. Now, speaking of which, because both the Inklings and Bendy's bodies are made of liquid and are vulnerable to other liquid substances, they both potentially have the right tools to take each other down. It's likely that if either of them becomes overwhelmed or submerged in the other's ink, their bodies will weaken and melt or dissolve in the other's ink. So perhaps it really comes down to who's able to totally ink the other first, but I've already explained why the Inklings are more likely to do so due to the skill and speed advantages I mentioned earlier. Now, in terms of strength and destructive capability, well, Bendy definitely has the physical strength advantage for sure, but the power output of the Inklings' weapons is enough to match if not surpass it. Bendy and Boris have both been shown strong enough to break through solid steel, which would require an average of 40,000 psi, but the Inklings, on the other hand, their weapons can dispense ink with enough force and pressure to penetrate metals as tough as titanium, which I've estimated to require at least 55,000 psi, if not more. And that's just the basic shooter weapons, let alone the stronger weapon classes. I think it's safe to say that the Bendy Gang getting ink splattered with over 55,000 pounds of force or more would definitely leave them reduced to a dead, mushy puddle. Now, the most unexpectedly overpowered combatant in this battle would be none other than Agent 3's little buddy, Small Fry. As mentioned earlier in the pre-analysis, Small Fry has a monstrous appetite capable of devouring massive amounts of strange liquid substances that are harmful to Inklings, such as the fuzzy ooze, which doesn't seem to affect Small Fry at all. So I don't see why Small Fry wouldn't be able to just simply consume all of Bendy's ink that he throws at the Inklings, essentially rendering his greatest weapon useless against Small Fry. If that's not enough, there's no way in actual hell that any member of the Bendy Gang would be able to compete with Small Fry's massive kaiju-like form, Huge Fry. Even Bendy's ultimate beast form is dwarfed by it, and considering that Huge Fry could physically match the strength of Mr. Grizz and take attacks from him, who could physically rotate a 2,000-ton space shuttle, I highly doubt that Ultimate Beast Bendy would be able to handle that. It's more likely that Huge Fry would just swallow Bendy whole. Now, even if we decide to be a little generous to the Bendy Gang and say that Small Fry couldn't achieve his Huge Fry form without outside help from the Squid Sisters, which is very debatable, I'd say the Inkling's superior fighting skills, speed, durability, and destructive power output are enough to take down the Bendy Gang even without Huge Fry's help. Honestly, I think adding in Huge Fry was probably just overkill. I think I've said enough. So, in the end, it looks like Bendy won't be having another Dark Revival after this defeat. The winners of this battle are Agent 3, Small Fry, and Deep Cut of Splatoon 3. Now, before we wrap this up, I want to give a huge thanks to the animators of this battle, Cam Sparkles and Speedstar X. Also, a special thanks and shout out to the very talented voice actors featured in this episode as well. Please do yourself and them a favor and go check out their channels and subscribe. Oh, and one more thing. For those of you who don't already know, I now officially have a Patreon. If you want to show your support and join the RCMP, as in Royal Canadian Mounted Patrons, then that would be so awesome, and I would really appreciate it. Members of the RCMP will have beneficial access to future episodes of Show Off Showdown and other videos before they're officially released, as well as exclusive access to special posts and videos that can only be viewed on Patreon.
Join the RCMP, and the first thing you'll learn is a nice shiny badge. Got any ideas for Show Off Showdown? Then let me know in the comments below, and hopefully, I just might do them. Now stay tuned for the next episode of Show Off Showdown!